Welcome to Straight from the CPA's Mouth, your connection to the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center, Alberta CPAs, and business professionals. This podcast, presented by the CPA Education Foundation, features Alberta Chartered Professional Accountants and others sharing their expertise and insights on a wide range of topics. Tune in regularly for eye-opening looks on leadership, business, education, and many issues of the day, straight from the CPA's mouth. Before we begin, in honor of the 94 calls to action put forth by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, we'd like to acknowledge that CPA Education Foundation offices are situated on the traditional Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 territories. The Foundation acknowledges that we reside on traditional and ancestral territories of many Indigenous, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Their histories and culture influence our community to this day. The CPA Education Foundation is committed to helping build a province where Indigenous peoples and their voices and experiences are heard, valued, respected, and celebrated. Welcome back to another episode of Straight from the CPA's Mouth. My name is Nikki Fabier with the CPA Education Foundation, and I'll be your host for this episode. We're all familiar with traditional investments in tangible or physical items such as real estate, gold, or collectibles like art. However, in the past 25 years, investments in intangible assets have increased dramatically. In fact, recent research from McKinsey Global Institute found that by 2019, intangible assets accounted for 40% of all investments in the United States and 10 European economies, up 29% from 1995. Intangible investments continued to surge in 2020 as digitalization accelerated in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. When it comes to intangible assets, we are left wondering, what are they really worth? Today, we have Mason Darabi, CPA, co-founder and Chief Commercialization Officer at Ovenue, here with us to tell us more about intangible assets, blockchain technology, and to share his thoughts about the way technology will influence the role of CPAs. It's time to hear it straight from the CPA's mouth. Mason, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Nikki. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, we're very excited to talk to you. You have a lot of really good knowledge to share, so I think we can just go ahead and dive right in. When we first spoke, you had described yourself as the Trojan of the CPA profession. So can you tell us a little bit more about why you've chosen that title?
Absolutely. So I lived the whole life out of accounting, primarily as an engineer and in the venture capital world. So I came across this whole notion of intangible assets and the evaluation before switching my gears towards becoming a CPA. So I realized that by entering in the profession, I may not be that typical CPA as you would imagine. So and I was always on a mission to build a solution to find the problem that I'm sure that we are going to extensively discuss today. And I called myself a Trojan horse of the CPA world.
All right, so you're here to kind of revolutionize the way we think about things. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
That's great. So for those of our listeners who may not know, and I'm still sure there are a large piece or portion of the population that is unfamiliar, what are intangible assets?
Absolutely. So intangible assets are basically all kind of assets that can generate value for individuals, for businesses, that doesn't have a physical substance. You cannot touch it, you cannot see it, and there's no way that you can put a fence around that asset. And apparently, over the past 3 decades, as we are growing super fast in the knowledge economy and in the science-driven economy, these kind of assets are becoming every day more important than before. And as you rightfully said at your opening, like COVID-19 definitely accelerated the growth of intangibles. Like we remember that's when pretty much every tangible asset was stranded, but intangible asset was growing. Like all of a sudden we wake up one morning and then we were told that we don't need to go to the office, and then we were all like on Zoom calls and all kind of other like video conferencing platform, and those are all forms of intangible assets. So Zoom was providing value to all businesses as opposed to the physical office that we were used to go. So in general, intangible assets are kind of broken down in few categories. So you have artistic intangible assets, such as like music lyrics, video, pictures. You have technology-based intangible assets like patents, software code, chemical formulas, and you have contractual intangible assets, such as construction permits. And then you have all other type of intangible assets that really drive the value of for companies.
Okay. You mentioned and you talked a little bit about this whole idea of like different classes of intangible assets, but what do you feel is the importance of, I guess, having certain asset classes?
Absolutely. Let me tell you a story on how I came across the importance of this asset class. Back in 2009, I was in the world of venture capitals dealing with startup companies. And as you would know, lots of startup companies, they get built on top of intangible assets. They don't have buildings. They don't have manufacturing equipment. All they have is really intangibles. They have software codes. They have patents. They have knowledge, know-how, and all kind of great stuff that they are not touchable. And I was reading this article about this amazing Canadian company called Nortel. The company went bankrupt in 2009. I was just reading the article in the aftermath of that event, and it was talking about the company that was holding $3.2 billion worth of assets, out of which $31 million was allocated by my peers, CPAs or CAs at the time, to the value of 6,000 patents that the company held. So in the aftermath of that event, they sold all these assets for $4.5 billion, which means that the financial statements of the company at the date of bankruptcy was undervalued by almost $4 billion. And this is a huge number. So the company had literally $8 billion of asset, but CPAs, they counted only 3.5 of it. Mm-hmm. So that kind of become an aha moment for me, and my light bulb went off and said, okay, how did this happen? And that kind of was the inception of my journey to this whole world of intangibles, how they get valued, and I realized that this is an accounting problem. And as someone, as I mentioned, in the world of IT, like building like data centers and implementing ERP and whatnot, I knew that if you want to disrupt an industry, you need to be an insider. You cannot just be an outsider, not knowing what's going on, how accountants are thinking. And that's why I kind of decided to make that kind of drastic change in my professional kind of trajectory and from engineering and become a CPA. So accountants are amazing. Like, we are the financial engineers of the world. Like, we are to a large extent, we are the guardians of the financial world. Like, people, they make every single day decisions based on the information that accountants, CPAs in public practice or within the industry, they provide to the markets. So they can make decisions whether they have to shrink their investment, they have to expand, what they need to do and whatnot. So and apparently over the industrial age, we have learned very well with the help of other professions how to count tangibles. But it doesn't seem that we have intangibles like real estates, machineries, equipment, and whatnot. So accountants, they don't have any problem counting those. But it seems that we have a bit of a hard time really understanding the value of intangibles, and to a large extent, like as I mentioned, in the case of Nortel's bankruptcy, like it doesn't seem that we did a good job on really counting the value of the intangibles that the company held at the time.
Right. So you're kind of saying, in terms of the way we evaluate intangibles, that there's definitely room for growth. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Or in other sense, I think the intangible is, in my mind, is part of a bit of a bigger problem of what we are dealing in the accounting profession. So as I said, like, accountants are producing the end products of our work is getting used by the users of the financial statements to make very important decisions about the fate of the companies. over the past 3 decades, especially, it seems the value of the financial statements or the products that we proudly produce in the accounting world is diminishing significantly. They have, like, financial statements in general are backward-looking information. When most people, when they want to make decisions, they want to know about the future. Mm-hmm. That yesterday is gone. I want you to tell me what's going to happen tomorrow. And it doesn't seem that we are able to provide that kind of information to investors. As I said, lots of information that every day, like if you want to invest in the stock of, let's say, like Tesla, you don't want to wait until the next quarter when the financial statements are coming out to make decision whether you have to enter to the market and invest in Tesla's stock today or not. You need information today. So in a world of connectivity and everything is kind of connected, it seems that our end product is a bit like disconnected from the reality, and this gap is just becoming wide and wide every day. And I think we are at the point that we need to kind of sit back, go back to the sketching board, and say, what do we need to do to make sure that our profession, what we have been building for hundreds of years, is going to be relevant for the future. And again, like I'm sure that we'll go through this in more detail. But financial statements, I'm afraid to say that they're becoming obsolete and useless every day. So we need to think about coming up with a better product, and that's why I'm passionately with my colleagues at Ovenue, we are kind of trying to kind of crack the code on helping companies and especially small medium enterprises to be able to use better tools to kind of showcase the real value of their company, as opposed to just waiting for the year end and a CPA firm preparing some sort of like backward looking like financial statements.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm definitely very curious to pick your brain about some of the solutions you think a little bit later on. But I do want to quickly touch on that example that you did provide regarding Nortel it was, and how in that particular scenario, the assets were significantly undervalued. So what do you believe, and I always kind of come back to this idea, and I mentioned in the intro in terms of what intangibles are really worth. So what do you think are some of the challenges in working with or evaluating intangible assets currently?
Absolutely. So I think we need to kind of look at two concepts initially. So before I can really answer your question. So valuation in general is as a perception. If I'm asking, hey, Nikkei, like how much is the value of your car, without looking at any other third-party information, you may say, I think my car is worth like $20,000. It can be 15, it can be 25, it can be 100, or it can be $5,000. Who knows? So valuation is your perception about the value of something. The price is what the market tells you about how much the public or someone who's interested in that asset thinks that your asset is worth. What's happening in intangible right now, and that has been a problem. It's not purely accounting problem. That's why like accountants need to lean on some other people like the startups that like us, that they are working in this space, to provide them tools that they can be able to use it. But the solution always starts with really acknowledging that the problem exists. So the problem right now is we don't have an active marketplace where very unique assets, like intangible assets, will be traded or they can be transacted, and then accountants can go in there and say, you know what, this type of patent is getting traded around this within this range. So it has become a chicken and egg problem because of the fact there is no marketplace. The companies they are not able to really utilize or capitalize on the real value of their asset. And accountants, because that there is no marketplace out there, say, you know what, I don't know how much this is worth, so I'm going to assume it's zero. And the frameworks that the accounting or the CPA as a whole is operating based on is really written during the industrial age, when the machines, real estate, labor, all these things were driving the value of the economy. But nowadays, you have a piece of software, like people that they are investing, let's say in Facebook. Do they really care about where the real estate of Facebook is? Do they really care about the number of chairs and desks that the company owns? No, I don't think so. They really care about WhatsApp, Instagram, I don't know, like the next metaverse platform that they're going to introduce. So, and that has been the theme. So looking at the S&P 500, which is the best indication of how intangible assets is important. In 1975, out of $700 billion value of the entire S&P 500 companies, only a fraction of that was intangibles. And the companies at the top of the list were like GE, IBM, 3M. And looking at those companies, they all had tons of hard assets. Fast forward in 2018, you look at the market, the total value of the market is 25 trillion, which means that it has grown significantly from 1975. And out of that, $21 trillion the value of intangibles. And the companies at the top are Amazon, Alphabet, Facebook, or Meta. And you don't see GE anymore up there. Why? Because these companies are really driven by intangible assets. And you look at the financial statements of these companies and say, okay, I want to go in and check the financial statement, see if what market says these companies are worth are the same as what CPAs are saying that these companies are worth. And I'm sorry to say that there's a huge gap, that there's a huge spread between the net book value of the assets that CPAs are saying that this company is worth. These are the value of these assets and what the markets are saying. Right. So that's why financial statements are becoming useless. Let's accept it.
I do really like how, Mason, how you mentioned that a lot of this, is perception based and that is a large challenge, I guess, of evaluating intangibles. And I always think back to like my days in university, like Economics 101 and learning about this whole idea of like willingness to pay and how that's different for everyone. So kind of reminded me of that. But I guess why is it important for CPAs to remain up to date on the changes in technology and specifically how it relates to accounting functions?
Absolutely. So I think technology is just enabling everyone to like do things in a better way, become more effective instead of going through the grind of day and not doing like amazing things, letting machines and then other tools helping us to do those like grinding work so we can add more value on different aspects of the business in terms of like advisory and whatnot. So when any technology disruption happen, I think we have two choices. Either we are going to be the disruptor or we are going to be the disruptee. So as a disruptor, you're trying to move the needle. You are trying to be like relevant. You're trying to help your clients in way better ways. But if you are choosing to be on the disruptee side, the tides of change will come to your shore and it will make you obsolete or irrelevant. There are lots of tools that we were using, 20 years ago that we don't use them anymore today. And so accounting is not an exception. So if accounting is not able to produce meaningful information that the users can use them to make important decisions, probably they are not going to use our products anymore and they're going to switch to something else. And this is what's happening. If you look at most of the investment decisions that gets made every day, people, they use all kind of other sources of information. Let me give you an example. In the venture capital world, there are a whole bunch of super expensive systems that they provide some sort of intelligence or insight about how much this technology is worth, how much this startup is worth, like what are the most recent deals that are happening. So people are using those sources of information as opposed to waiting for a company to release their financial statement. They get the financial statement. They know that this is probably produced only for the compliance purposes, like for tax or some other reasons. They throw it out. And they go and talk to the corporate managers to really get those information. But let's be honest. For some rich investors, high net worth individuals, family offices that they can afford to hire an army of like analysts and probably pay for these hefty like bills of subscription services of getting financial intelligence, the general public would probably cannot afford paying these. So
Right.
again, as the guardian of the financial world, we are trying to make sure that we protect the public. This is the core theme of the whole like CPA universe, that we are trying to be independent, unbiased, provide information, so people they can make right decisions. And again, I'm afraid that we may not be providing the general public that kind of quality information that they need to make a decision about the livelihood of their investment, about the most important things that they have, which is their money. And so going back to your question, I think as CPAs, we need to embrace new technologies. Technologies are not coming to be a threat to us or get us out of work. The technologies is coming to enable us to be a better version of ourselves. And I think blockchain, AI, all other technologies that are kind of emerging are in that category.
Great. So I'm really hearing that we as a profession don't need to be, afraid of the technologies, in terms of job security or things like that. Really, the technologies are just another tool in our tool belt to do our jobs a little bit better. Is that correct?
Exactly. And even beyond that, in some sense, most people, they think about when they think about accountants, they think that we are a bunch of old guys that they're at the back of the room, drowning papers and crunching numbers. But that's not the reality. I worked in public practice for a number of years, and every time that I was interacting with clients, they have tough questions that we need to answer. Should I shrink my business? What's going to happen in the next few months? How's my operation doing? So accountants are the most trusted advisors of their clients, and they lean on us. So we give them advice. Technology is just going to help us to be way better advisor than we were before.
Absolutely. So I guess speaking of, some tools that we can add to our tool belt, you did mention in one of our previous conversations the importance of equipping CPAs with tools to be successful as technology advances. So I guess in your opinion, what does that look like?
So that's the part that I'm always kind of perplexed by, is sometimes technology is getting developed or designed and produced by people that they may not have the domain expertise. Like tech people, they build tools and they think in their mind that us CPAs or maybe other type of professions are going to adopt them. I think we have to be at the forefront of really building these tools. And that's why, as I said, I wanted to be an insider who is really looking at how our iceberg is melting, where the cracks are, so I can start thinking and partnering with people so we can build solutions. That's probably one of the major shifts that probably you would see in the whole accounting industry, in terms of accounting firms and whatnot. They are kind of moving away from being that traditional commodity financial statement producer, and they are now becoming more of a tech company, and they are building products. The only challenge is still, because of the compliance and all other measures in the industry. I don't think that the majority of the CPAs out there have embraced the concept of let's us be the disruptors. Let us be the people that they're coming with these innovative technologies and partner with other professions to come up with the solutions for the future. And we are just thinking that the grasses are green out there and it's just going to stay like that. But it's the fact that these technologies are just going to help some of us to be more effective and efficient, while the rest are just using the old school toolkits, as you mentioned.
Right. So if I'm understanding correctly, kind of what you're saying is that CPAs should be involved and should be at the forefront of the creation of some of these new tools in order to continue, I guess, to be more successful. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my mind, as opposed to be a consumer of technology, I think we are well prone to be the producer of the technology. And there's nothing that hinders us CPAs from being entrepreneurs and building amazing products. So not only us, but other people also, they can use them.
Absolutely. Especially like you mentioned, CPAs are the trusted business advisors or the trusted advisors for financial information. We did talk a little bit about, some of the challenges and intangible assets, things like that. But I would like to talk a little bit about, the path forward. So can you tell us a little bit more about your startup in Silicon Valley, which is Ovenue, and why you believe it will help overcome some of the challenges that CPAs and the profession are currently facing?
Absolutely. So that's exactly what, again, like the providing a solution, it always starts with going through the journey of really understanding the problem. As I said, like where the iceberg is melting, what the cracks are, and then hopefully you can come up with a solution. So at Ovenue, we are building an AI-driven blockchain-enabled platform that help companies and trusted advisors like CPAs to help their clients to identify the assets of the companies and then use the tokenization technology and predictive analytics and AI to come up with the valuation of those assets. Use all kind of historical data that we have them in abundance in our systems, sitting there, no one is touching them, and provide the tool that probably if it was existing at a time that Nortel was going bankrupt, maybe if the CPAs were using, maybe if the CPAs of Nortel were using them, they would have been able to save the company from bankruptcy.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a really great project on the go and a really good and thriving company. And it looks like you're really looking to solve a lot of the problems that we are currently facing, or not necessarily problems, but challenges. So yeah, I think that pretty much answers my question. Mason, thank you so much for being here and for joining us. I hope this information helps our listeners gain some clarity on the topic of intangible assets, blockchain technology as well. So if, you're someone maybe looking to learn more about these topics, where would you recommend that they start? Are there any books, podcasts, other resources you can recommend?
Absolutely. So one book that I would like to highly recommend to all of my CPA peers to maybe read it, or if they don't have time, they can probably watch the YouTube interview of the author. Is a book called The End of Accounting. It might be seeming a bit gloomy, but it's not like that. It really talks about the cracks that exist in the financial ecosystem and then in the accounting world. The book is written by a professor emeritus, Baruch Leff, out of NYSU. It's an amazing book. I'm sure that, and it goes into the belly of the beast, talking about how intangible assets are important and talking about the financial implications of not getting them properly valued for us as CPAs. And in terms of any blockchain kind of podcast, the podcast I usually listen, which I've learned a lot from it, is a podcast called The Scoop. Frank Shapiro from The Block is producing it, and if you want to kind of get a bit of daily updates of what's happening in the blockchain world, I highly recommend the Bankless Nation.
Okay, those are all really great suggestions, and thank you so much for sharing. Again, thank you so much for being here,
My
for
pleasure.
joining us, sharing your knowledge, telling us a little bit more about the path forward.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Straight from the CPA's Mouth. This episode featured Mason Darabi, CPA, co-founder and Chief Commercialization Officer at Ovenue. If you like what you're hearing, have ideas for future episodes, or have any feedback you'd like to share, email us at knowledgecenter@cpaalberta.ca or leave us a comment on social media. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Straight from the CPA's Mouth is produced by the CPA Education Foundation, the charitable arm of the CPA profession in Alberta. This podcast is made possible by Brian Heshey, FCPA FCA. Thanks to Brian's generous donation, the foundation created the Heshey CPA Knowledge Center, a virtual hub of resources for all Albertans. Find out more about the Foundation and the Knowledge Centre at cpaalberta.ca/foundation.